All right then. So if you'll lie on your back and just relax for a moment and take a scan of your body and notice what parts of you are contacting the floor, your heels, your calves, your buttocks. And then notice your spine and notice if the low back is on the floor, arced away from the floor, and if one side of your waist or ribs is more into the floor than the other side. So notice all that. Notice if your head is tilted one side or another. And roll your head from side to side. See how that goes. And then bend your knees and stand your feet. Put your feet into the floor and press for just a couple of times, press your feet into the floor and feel how that lifts your tail a little bit and then release. Now here, you might be able to feel this all the way up into your head. You feel how your chin moves more towards your chest and your back is more arched when your tail is closer. And that when you press your feet into the floor, your nose goes up a little bit, your waist comes down. So just do that a few times. And then lengthen your legs and rest. And see if that made a difference in how you're contacting the floor. Breathing. And then bend your knees and stand your feet again. And lift both of your shoulders away from the floor and then let them come down gently. Now here, smoothly go up and then come down again. And as you do that, again, notice how your head slides on the floor. So as your shoulders come up, your nose goes up. And as your shoulders come down, your chin comes closer to your chest. So just do a few of those. I think this movement is totally delicious, but you'll see what you feel. Slowly. So let your head be part of the movement, Steve. So as you lift your shoulders up, can you let your head slide? Yes, that's it. Smooth. And make sure you control the decontraction so when the shoulders go back, they're going slowly, they're not just plopping. And then pause that, or actually put your hand on your sternum, and as you lift your shoulders, feel how your sternum goes down and comes back. So it's really making quite an excursion. Just put your hand on your heart. You could also put your hands on your ribs. But it's really very dramatic when you put your hand on your sternum. Okay, then let that go. Take a breath. Relax. And now a few times, press your shoulder blades into the floor and release them. So just press gently and release. And as you do that, when you press, notice how your shoulder blades come together. And when you release, they slide apart again. And notice when you press the shoulder blades into the floor, what's happening with your tailbone? Can you feel how that's moving too? Notice your breathing. Are you inhaling or exhaling as you press? I think it's interesting to inhale as you press and then exhale as you release. But you can do whatever you want. You can try both. Good. And then lengthen your legs. Rest, rest, rest. And here, if you want, you can take another look at how you're making contact with the floor. Do you feel longer, heavier, more symmetrical, more relaxed? What is it you feel? All right, then roll your head a little bit from side to side, see if that's changed. And once again, bend your knees and stand your feet. And now we're going to put those two movements together that we did. So you're going to lift the shoulders up, away, relax them down to the floor, and then press the shoulders into the mat and release. Can you make this smooth? Lifting the shoulders, releasing them down, and pressing the shoulders into the mat and releasing the shoulders away. Just keep going, keep breathing, nice and slow, allowing the head and the tail to be part of this movement. Lifting up, lowering down, lifting up, and lowering down. Can you make the movement seamless? Notice how the shoulder girdle is moving. And now, as you continue to do this, begin to coordinate the movement of your pelvis with the shoulders. So as you're lifting your shoulders, your waist is flattening, the tail lifts. As you press, the tail comes closer to the floor and you arch your back. So just go back and forth, connecting the head and tail through the hips and the shoulders. Shoulders come up. And the shoulders come up, the nose comes up. When the shoulders go down, the chin comes down. Shoulders come up, the waist is pressed into the floor. When the shoulders press, the waist is away from the floor. So keep going with that wonderful movement, pressing and releasing, connecting your hips and the movement of the pelvis. Yeah, it's not quite a bridge. It's more of an arch of the back. That's it. Very good. That'll help your belly dancing. Yes. Then gradually let the shoulders go a little bit lighter and smaller and quicker. So just do a quick light movement. Boom, 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 boom. And then let that go and relax and breathe. Let your legs be long. All right, then come back, bend your knees, stand your feet, and now lift the right shoulder by itself and let it come down to the floor. So when you lift the right shoulder, can you feel how you're rolling over your ribs and pressing the left ribs and the back more into the mat? And what's happening with your head as you're lifting your right shoulder? So you're just lifting a little bit and lowering. And then let that go and lift your left shoulder and bring it down. And again, it might be quite different on this side. Maybe you don't feel as much happening on your right side, but what's happening with your ribs as you're lifting your left shoulder up and lowering it down? What is your head doing? Is your head rolling with it? Which way does it go? And now we're going to alternate. So lift the right shoulder and then lift the left shoulder. And think if there were a marble rolling across your collarbone, how can you make it so that it's so smooth that the marble goes all the way to the left when you're lifting the right shoulder and all the way to the right when you're lifting the left shoulder? So just go back and forth, lifting one shoulder and then the other. Nice and juicy. Can you make it smaller, Steve? And slower? Do less. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, there you go. And then when you lift the right shoulder, press the left shoulder. And when you lift the left shoulder, press the right shoulder. Now, this is a different kind of feeling. It gets very deep. So you're pressing the shoulder that you're not lifting. Lift the left shoulder, press the right one. Lift the right shoulder, press the left one. And as you do this, can you feel what's happening in your abdominals? Good. And then let that go. Lengthen your legs and rest. How do you feel now? What is the shape that you're making on the floor now? How is your breathing now? And then bend your knees and stand your feet and return to bringing your hip joints away from the floor a little bit and see if that's clearer. So basically what you're doing is just press into your feet as we did in the beginning and see if that movement has become clarified. And then put your hands on the bones of your hips and a few times lift and lower your tailbone. And just feel the excursion of the bones. And then straighten the left leg. So the right knee is bent, left leg is long. And feel what it's like in this position, just to bring the right hip joint a little bit away from the floor. So the easy way to say this is just press into your right foot, and that will bring the hip a little bit away from the floor. And as you do that, can you feel how long you get on the left side? The side of your torso is lengthened a little bit. You might feel your heel excursioning a little bit on the left leg, sliding a little bit. You might feel the front of the hip joint opening up on the left. And now do the opposite. So now you're going to bring the tail closer to the floor. So that will mean lightening the weight on your right foot. And here, again, notice what's happening in the left leg. Can you feel how you might be going toward a more pointed foot on the left side as you lift, arch the lower back and bring the tailbone closer to the floor? And then alternate those two movements. So you're pressing into the hip and then lifting the low back so that the tail goes into the floor. Press the waist into the floor, lift it away. Whatever makes sense to you. I'm using different words because everybody's got a different way of understanding these movements. So just do whatever makes sense to you. And then lengthen both legs and feel the difference. Now here, which leg feels longer? It's very apparent to me. I wonder what you're going to think. And then let your head roll a little bit side to side. Does your head feel rounder? And compare the sensation. How does your right hip, which we just worked with, feel in comparison with your left hip? Maybe your left hip is a little bit grinchy and achy, but your right hip feels really good and long. Feel whatever it feels to you, and notice your spine. Does it feel like your spine is more symmetrical or more even? Okay, and then bend your right knee, bring your right foot to standing a few times. Press the right foot in, and then begin to coordinate, lifting the left shoulder away from the floor as you do that. So now we're going to connect the dots diagonally. So lift the left shoulder towards your right hip and imagine that some sort of arc in the middle of your back is pressed into the floor, or that you've got a rubber band connecting the top of the hip with the top of the shoulder. So this again is a delicious movement. I mean, just enjoy the way your back is lengthening. Feel the way your abdominals are gently gathering and strengthening. There's a lot going on in this lesson. Allow your head to be part of the movement. Enjoy. And then pause. Now we're going to do the opposite. So press the left shoulder, the shoulder blades into the floor, and then lift the hip so that the diagonal points of your right hip joint come closer to the floor. So you're going to be making an arc. You press into the left shoulder and then lift the spine so that the tail comes closer to the floor. Remember to be gentle with yourself, people. I don't want you to do anything painful. This is a really juicy lesson if you do it right. And I'm sure you are, but just a reminder, you know. And then alternate, bringing the hip and shoulder together and taking them apart. So you're bringing the right hip and left shoulder together, and then you're pressing the left shoulder blade into the floor and taking it away from the right hip joint. So do a few of those. Enjoy the movement. Good, good, good. And then lengthen your legs. Take a rest. Again, what's happening with your right leg? Maybe it feels a lot longer. Is it more turned out than your left leg? How does the hip feel? The hip feel better on the right, the one we worked with, or the left? So let's do the left. Bend your left knee and bring the foot to standing and feel what it's like to bring the back of your left hip joint away from the floor. So you're just arching your back a little bit. Notice what happens with your shoulders when you're doing that. And then bring your right shoulder up towards your left hip. Do a few of those. And let the head roll. And then do the opposite. So now you're pressing the right shoulder in the blade into the mat and arcing the back a little bit. Do a few of those gently. And then take a little rest, lengthen your legs. Maybe you're starting to feel a little bit more symmetrical. And now here, simple movement. Bring your right hand toward the ceiling and then reach across as though you were trying to reach into your left pocket. So you're going to reach across yourself over toward the left hip. It's above the left hip, but sort of in that direction of the left pocket. And notice as you do this, what's happening in your back. Now, again, if you go slow and reach up, your whole back is going to be just lengthening, making contact with the floor in this very pleasurable way. If you jerk your arm, it's not going to feel so good. But here, just think of lifting your shoulder blade. You don't even have to reach. It's just sort of a lift of the shoulder blade, and then your back nestles into the floor. And then let that go. And let your arm be by your side and lift your right shoulder and see if that's gotten easier to lift the right shoulder. Maybe your head rolls more easily too. Okay, then press into your left foot to bring the back of your left hip joint away from the floor as you bring the right shoulder to the hip joint. So you're going to press into the foot, bring the shoulder toward the hip joint. Just do that a few times, feeling how the spine is connecting these two movements. And the movement is getting distributed along the spine. Bringing the right shoulder toward the left hip. And then lengthen your legs. Feel your imprint on the floor. Notice how tall you feel on the floor. How is your breathing? Maybe there's more room to breathe. And then bend your left knee. Bring your left foot to standing. And a couple of times, press your right shoulder into the floor and feel the tip of the bottom of the right shoulder blade. Feel how it slides as you press it into the floor. And then coordinate pressing the right shoulder and bringing your tail toward the floor. You're arching a little bit. And then let's do that luscious movement of bringing the shoulder blade up toward the hip and then pressing it down into the mat, and let the hip be part of that movement so the tailbone will be moving up and down. It will happen pretty much automatically. You don't have to stress over the words or the instructions because the body really does this all by its lonesome. You don't have to think too much. So just enjoy this movement. Let the head move as well. Enjoy everything about this lesson. Feel your collarbones. And then stretch yourself out again, lengthen the legs. And roll your head a little bit from side to side. And then feel your contact with the floor, see how it might have changed. Try to remember what it was like when you first noticed it this evening.